Good evening. I know that it's kind of a late start for me to just start talking about what I'm reading, but this morning I read for like 5 minutes maybe The Testaments by Margaret Atwood because I was gonna try to read a little more, but I called my mom and then she didn't pick up, so I put the audiobook on and then she called me back like 5 minutes later and I was like, I'd rather talk to my mom and my dad than read right now. So I talked to them for a while. I didn't get any reading done, so that's okay. I'm not too bummed out about it, but I'm thinking, even though it's midnight, of reading just a little bit. Oh, you can see that's leche and that's torito, and this is baby. Not that it matters, but playing my mobile game just for like 10 seconds, finish the chapter maybe, and then go to bed. Don't have to wake up too early tomorrow, but yeah. Also tomorrow, if what I think is gonna happen, I'll have a long walk and I will be reading during that, so that'll be like a solid half an hour, and usually I like go through a solid like 5 or 6 chapters of whatever book I'm reading. However, this is all just a theory. I don't really know if this will actually happen. Yeah, not much update. I haven't really read much today. Okay, bye. The next day I did end up finishing EC 74 to 100%. I finished The Testaments by Margaret Atwood, and in case you didn't know, The Testaments is a sequel novel that goes after The Handmaid's Tale, describing how Gilead is falling apart from within. The story is told through several points of views, one of which was Aunt Lydia, and I think that this was the strongest character in the book and in the novel. The other characters, they were good, but they weren't necessarily my favorite. That's kind of like the general plot and sort of what goes on in this book, and it's definitely not as strong as her initial novel, The Handmaid's Tale, which is obviously a classic. You can't really beat The Handmaid's Tale. I also wanted to talk about the importance of reading in this book, which I thought was really cool, and sort of like how the Bible gets sort of twisted and turned for Gilead's better, because as women can't read in this world, they don't really know what goes on in the Bible except for what's told to them. So whenever the two girls are learning to read, it's so fascinating for them to like notice how what they're told and what they've been learning isn't necessarily what they thought to be true, which I thought was really cool. It's Tuesday, which kind of sucks because I hate Tuesdays, but that's besides the point. Today is another day completed. No more having to worry about Tuesday, but you know, what can you do about it? I've actually made a lot of progress through Handmaid's Tale. I think I read from like 68% today to 70-ish, maybe 84. Like, I've made a lot of progress, and I only have an hour and a half left on the audiobook, and if I continue to listen to it on 2x speed, I could like finish it tonight because it's only 9:30, but I also have to wake up early tomorrow, so I don't really know what to do about that. I'm sure I'll figure it out. But honestly, I've made quite a bit of progress. I was like not really liking it that much, at least as much as I thought I would. I don't really know if it's because it's an audiobook, so the number of narrators just kind of throws me off or whatever, but I am realizing that I kind of am liking how this is tying together near the end, and how it's kind of like, I don't really know, like it just like I'm starting to enjoy it a little more. And yeah, I mean, I felt like I kind of sort of understood what was going on from the beginning, and I could kind of sort of pick up the hints and sort of build it together. I was just kind of like, oh, that was the shocking turn. I don't know. It's really interesting though to read about how, honestly, this is probably one of my favorite things that I've picked up so far, where I don't really know how to say this without spoiling it, but whatever. If you don't want to be spoiled, I would just skip ahead. I can never remember their names either. I like mix them up because I can never know who's who. But essentially, the two girls that are from Gilead and are now aunts, they're learning how to read. and they're learning to read, and they use the Bible because they have to read some way. I mean, they have to, that's the whole point of being an aunt, is being able to read. And, well, not the whole point, but that's like a very important aspect of being an aunt, is to be able to read the Bible, and to sort of spread the message of the Bible to other people, because other people cannot read, specifically women. I think men are supposed to know how to read. But one of the girls was like, oh, I can kind of see why they didn't want us to read. They're kind of lying and manipulating what's going on here and what they're telling us to make it sound a certain way. And even what they can read is sort of like in white, and the rest is in black. So like they have like sort of explicit things they can read, but now that they're growing up to be more aunts, they can read a lot more. I don't know if this is making any sense. So it's really interesting to see how censorship is playing into this, and how they're like actually seeing how knowledge is dangerous for Gilead, and how that impacts their point of like view of this sort of corrupt what's the word? Government, I guess. Anyway, so the twist towards the end kind of got me like, ooh, I didn't see that one coming. And I want to say that it's all connected to the first book, but I'm just waiting to see if that connection will actually make itself known or anything, but I'm not really sure. I feel like deep down inside I'm right, because I've been sort of right for the most part. I'm like, I feel like, I don't know if Margaret Atwood wants you to know, or if she's kind of, or I'm just able to guess, but I'm never usually able to do that. So I feel like Atwood made it very obvious, and it's making it very obvious for the reader to know what's going on with who, and how that kind of, I don't know if this makes any sense. So like the plot twist was like, I was kind of like, oh, well, yeah, I kind of saw that one coming. I read a lot at the gym. I made a lot of progress in the gym, so that was great. Yeah, and I might read right now. We'll just see. Okay. I'll see you Wednesday morning. Okay, so Wednesday rolls around, and I decided to continue reading I Who Have Never Known Men by Jacquelin Harpman. I was about a fourth in, and I made the mistake of starting to look for reviews and spoilers, which is something I usually do about when I'm halfway into a book. And I think I like made the mistake of looking at that, because usually I do it and I don't really get spoiled or anything, but I genuinely feel like I did get a spoiler, and it was, I don't even know. Like, I Who Have Never Known Men is a very philosophical book that really makes you sit and think, and kind of like, there is no plot to this book. There is just like, you're just following a girl. And if you're like, oh, I don't even know what you mean by following a girl, essentially, oh, here I'm like telling you to admire my earrings, so I hope you like my earrings. But essentially, I Who Have Never Known Men is about this girl, an unnamed girl, never has a name, unnamed narrator, who is trapped in a bunker, and she's just been there for like her entire life with 39 other women who are significantly older than her, and they have all had experiences in their past lives. They know like kind of what their life was like before they were trapped there, but she doesn't, so she's used to the bunker. And so that's kind of what it's about, and how she kind of sees the world and discovers the world, and it's really interesting. Wait, real quick, so that way you see the whole hot dog reveal. They didn't put as much cheese in it. All good. Oh wait, yeah. Perfect. Yay! Thank you. That was book club. We talked about books over some chili dogs, which were really, really tasty. Anyway, so Thursday comes around, and I only read like 10 pages of I Have Never Known Men, and then I started reading this book by Isabel Allende called Largo, pétalo del mar. And in English, if I knew the name of it, I would tell you, but I don't, so looks like you'll just have to be anxious about not knowing the name of it. Oh, the name of the book, Largo, pétalo del mar, is A Long Petal of the Sea. Largo, pétalo del mar is just like a romance from the Spanish Civil War in the 1930s to 1940s, I think. Anyway, I started reading it on audiobook because, you know, I got my long walks on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and I couldn't really understand most of it, so that kind of sucks. Right, and I only read like 3%, but that was like half of a chapter, so the chapters are like extremely long. They're like 30 minutes a piece. I mean 60 minutes a piece, and I had to like lower the speed, which I usually listen at 2 times 1.75, but this one I had to go to like normal speed because I just needed the slower to comprehend. Also, it was in Spanish as opposed to like Latin American Spanish because the book takes place in Spain, so that kind of throws me off and I have a little bit of a difficulty understanding. Aside from that, I was also able to read a little bit of I Who Have Never Known Men, and I find it really interesting to know how this girl, despite being locked up and not knowing much of anything, she still kind of acknowledges that there's like some sort of power difference. She starts at the young guard because she hopes that she can have something over him, which I think is really interesting. Like, she wants some sort of power that even if he forces her to like stop looking or cracks his whip at her, she wants to be acknowledged and she wants to have her presence be known, but also to be known and to have someone notice you, she needs to have that power over him, because he never does end up like looking at her or doing anything about her looking at him. So, you know, take what you will. And the last Friday had come again. I didn't read so much on Friday. I don't think I read as much last week either, simply because I wanted to focus on my homework. But I was able to read a little bit between classes, but overall, nothing too crazy. Yeah, this is about, like, I would say typically how much I read in a week. I don't read super much because I had to get through a little bit of work this week. Oh yeah, this is me, look at me, checking myself out. Wow. But I was able to listen to a lot of audiobooks while I was walking to and from classes. It was kind of like, it was like the typical things. But yeah, I did end up writing a review for the Testaments, and yeah, that's literally all I have to say. I don't really have much else to say, I don't think. I guess I could say I rated the Testaments 2.5 stars. Nothing too crazy. I read it for about a month, from the 25th of February to the 31st of March. And obviously I didn't find this book to be as good as the original The Handmaid's Tale by Margaret Atwood, which I had read earlier this year. But I still, like I had said in my previous video, I feel like a lot of things are better left said, like unsaid, or not said at all, because sometimes it's better to just keep a reader off in the dark, and not knowing sort of what happens, and having the reader interpret things the way that they need is probably best. For that reason, I kind of just didn't really enjoy the book as much, and I think that the book, honestly, I don't want to say it had potential because I really don't think it did, but I don't really know what to say because it wasn't all that great, and it just kind of felt like a YA sort of novel. I do still think that Aunt Lydia was very strong character and had a lot of potential. I think that this could have been like a novella about Aunt Lydia as opposed to having several characters to just kind of show how different, like two different perspectives from the the Handmaid's Tale and the Testaments can counterbalance each other, from a woman who is literally set into terrible situation, terrible, awful sort of situation that she was put in, based off her quote-unquote social status before, as opposed to another woman who was a lawyer and how she ended up having a sort of high position in this newer society and what she does with that power. So yeah, what do I know?
Oh, there she is. She's over to the right of the tree. She blends in a little more. It's the males that have the bright colors, right?